How's it? Just a few thoughts about something that's coming up a lot and it's getting more um, more visible and more prominent in recent weeks because of the lockdown, especially with the stress and the strain of parents that sharing custody with their children, with their ex-partners. The one thing that comes up consistently, and this is not just during lockdown but throughout, is that the ones that have problems getting along in that space, the ones that find it difficult to strike a balance, is not, and I'll say this clearly, it's not because of your concern of the children. It's because you're still having a battle with your ex partner trying to point out exactly what it is that you don't approve of them, which caused the breakup in the first place. I see this happening often, very often. So, yeah, some people won't like this. But the reality is that if there's two grown adults in a relationship, even if it's an ex relationship, you'll be able to get along a lot better to be able to focus on what is important. And if the children are really as important as you say they are, then you'll find a way to get along and you'll find a way to strike that balance. However, if there's only one adult in the relationship, then that adult has to do more of the compensating and has to try and strike the balance on behalf of both. The problem comes in when there's two immature adults in that arrangement, where both parties are competing with each other for significance because they insist that they have to be the ones to be taken more seriously or respected more in what is good or beneficial for their children. No, that is not the point. The point is not about competing with each other, about who's better for the children, who isn't, or who does better by them, or who does more, who does less. People need to grow up. And the sooner they grow up, the sooner they'll realize why it is that they are exes and no longer partners. And yes, sometimes it's only one person that's not playing along. Often these days, it's both. Because we release children in adult bodies with adult privileges into the world, and then we expect them to make a good home. And unfortunately, one of the biggest trends I've seen from a coaching perspective is that when the relationship in the home, after they're married or after they've settled together as civil partners or whatever it is that you want to call it, when things are not going well, the first thing that they think of that might cement the relationship is, let's have children, because then we've got something that bonds us. No. Don't be selfish. Don't be immature. It's time we need to stand up and own our shit about this, because this is it's not even getting out of hand, it's beyond out of hand. We see the evidence around us all the time. We look at kids in schools and we see how, I don't like to use the word damaged, but we see how out of sorts they are. We see how it is that they struggle to find their identities. We see how they struggle to fit in. We see how they struggle to express themselves in a healthy way. So the violence increases, the abuse increases, the sexual abuse, the bullying, the drugs, all of that increases. Why? Because they're trying to escape emotionally inaccessible adults, not because they are losing touch with reality. They didn't get a good reality to begin with. And it all starts with the adults that choose to have children, but they don't want to accept the responsibility and the sacrifices that are needed to ensure that those children are raised correctly. So, those of you that are still having ridiculous debates, some of it very public, about how it is that your partner is not allowing you access and everything else, and please don't assume I'm speaking from a position of privilege. I've been through this more than once. So I know exactly what dynamics I at play. And I can tell you one thing. Posting about it in social media doesn't help anything. It just proves which one of the partners are probably the more problematic of the two. Trying to win favor in this debate is not going to get you anywhere. Trying to win supporters to try and prove how wrong the other person is not going to get you anywhere. And the kids are going to suffer. And the kids are suffering. And when the kids suffer, the next generation suffers. Can you imagine what's going to happen when the current kids that are so traumatized and so emotionally underdeveloped emerge from school and decide that they want to show the world how it is that they should be doing things instead, and they get into relationships and have kids of their own? Can you imagine what's going to happen then? They're suddenly going to realize how unprepared they are for the world because they were raised by adults, whether it was caring or not caring adults, but if they were immature with each other, they didn't set a good example for the kids. And these kids now become the next generation of parents, and then we wonder where we went wrong. No, we need to stop. We need to start owning our shit, and we need to change the narrative about this parents need that both parents are needed for children. Yes, I agree. Children need both parents, but let those both parents be adults, not children. And competing with each other for significance in who gets to make what decisions about the kids, that is immaturity. And the sooner we can deal with that, the sooner we can own that and start recognizing what it is that we're not doing to do right by the kids that are being impacted by the choices of the adults or the children in adult bodies. Until we recognize that, we won't be able to do something about it. So please, let's have a better conversation about this, because the conversations that are happening right now in the public domain, it's just not helpful at all. It's always about antagonism, and it's always about competing between the two partners and trying to prove one-upmanship and who's right and who's wrong. It's not about that. The reason why you can't get along now is the same reason why your relationship broke up. And if you don't fix that, your children are going to suffer. Please think about that. Cheers.